Hi friends, welcome to Coordinate, and today we want to understand on how we can work with mathematics when it comes to C++. Well, definitely I hate mathematics, but it's good that also in programming we have mathematics, and likely in C++ we have built-in functions which you will see and learn how to use when it comes to mathematics. So it's simply the need now to just call that function, and then the function itself will do the mathematics. Hence, less pressure compared to the mathematics that we have in our daily lives. So to work with mathematics in C++, the very first thing that we need to add in our code is simply a notification, more like notifying the code that inside this program I will be working with mathematics. And to do that, we need to add on, of course, a header file which is called cmath, or should I say, and a built-in library that allows us to work with mathematics. So to do that, we use the keyword include. Since this is here where this is the point where we include, of course, all the libraries and the header files, include cmath as, of course, a library that allows us to work with mathematics. So since we've included cmath, then definitely in this session we'll only discuss about a for, key, and major, and of course knowing these allows you, of course, to also discover the other types of functions of mathematics when it comes to C++. So we'll only implement 4 basic functions that allows you to work with mathematics in coding when it comes to C++. So we will have, of course, the max function. From there we will have the minimum function. From there we will also have the square root function, and lastly we have the round function. Knowing these functions, then most definitely you are ready to do the mathematics when it comes to C++. So what we've done so far is we've included a library which is, of course, called cmath. Just having this library, it allows us now to work with all the other types of functions of mathematics when it comes to the actual code that we are about to implement. So the very first thing that we need to implement is simply the maximum. How do you call the maximum, and how do you pass in parameters inside the maximum function for we to do the computation between the maximum of 2 numbers or the minimum of 2 numbers? So we'll just say, okay, cout. Cout simply means we want to print on the black window, of course, on our console. And definitely let's add some text. The max of 2 numbers is, and then we do that. Let's come out, and then from there we just say, okay, max, that's the name of the function, and then we pass in, after opening and closing, of course, we pass in the 2 numbers that we want to compare, and then return the maximum of the 2 numbers, which is, of course, let's add 37, 51. If we do that, then most definitely we'll see the maximum between the 2 numbers. So what we have done is, of course, this is simply a line of code that will be printed on the console. The real computation comes here. Max of 2 numbers, which is 37 and 51. We are saying, okay, return the maximum number between the 2. What other thing can we implement, or what is the other function before we print out on the console? The other function that we can, of course, implement, let's just end this line for it to be printing out each and every new line on its respective line. So let's now implement another function. This function is called a min function. The max function returns the maximum number between the 2. That's the one we've implemented so far. Now the minimum function returns the minimum number between the 2 numbers. So we'll say the min of 2 numbers is, we'll do that, and definitely we'll call now the function, the minimum function of cmath library, which is min as the keyword. Then you open and close, and definitely you pass in the 2 numbers that you want to use while doing the computation of returning the minimum of the 2 numbers. So we pass in the 2 numbers that we also included in our previous line of code. So if we are now to compile and run, then definitely Control S if it's not on auto save, or save the document for you to now come on where it says compile and run, and then definitely, or press F11 if you of course love doing shortcuts and the like. So the minimum of two numbers is, the maximum of two numbers is 51, and the mean of the two numbers is 37. So definitely we've seen that yes, maximum and minimum is simply a mathematics that allows us to return the larger value and the lower value respectively. So this is done. Now what is another function that we want to implement today? Of course, the function that allows us to work with mathematics when it comes to C++ and anything in relation to cmath as a library. Another function is simply the function that allows us to see and print out the square root of a number. Now that function is of course called, let's just, before we implement that function, let's just print out certain content on the console, then also the square root. Let's use 64 because that's the very common number of which we all know the answers. And then the square root of 64 is, so here we need now to call the function that will allow us to calculate the square root of 64. To implement the square root of 64, we use the keyword sqrt as simply square root, I'm sure you can tell, and then we open and then pass in the actual number that we want to find its square root, and then from there we can even terminate this line or end this line. So the square root of 64 is definitely, the square root of 64 will be printed out on the console, which is 8 times 8, that is 64. So definitely we have the square root of 64 printed out. This is why I love mathematics when it comes to the coding part of it, because it has been done already. The work has already been done. What we just need is to call the functions that will come and do the computation of that work. Then the very last function of mathematics with C++ that we implement is simply a function that can round off any decimal related number to its nearest integer. Like the name of mathematics we are doing, is it in our 5th grade, 6th grades, where we are saying, okay, if the number, the decimal part is greater than 5, then get a 1 and put on the left hand side. If it's lower than 5, then blah blah blah. Yeah, that's the same thing. So here we are just saying, okay, the rounding, let's use 56.9 is definitely here outside, of course, the extraction operators. We need to now call the same function that will round off 56.9 to its nearest integer, and the nearest integer, I'm sure if you are good in math you can tell that it is 57 definitely. So to call that function we use the keyword round, that's the name of the function, and definitely here this is where we pass now the actual number that we want this program to round. When we end the line we'll do that, and then when we of course compile and run after saving, Control S to save, then we'll see 57 as the actual nearby integer when we round off 56.9. But what if we passed on 56.3? Well, since the decimal value is less than 5, then definitely we need to see 56 because that's the nearest number, that's the nearest integer when it comes to all the mathematics that can be embedded or that can be done when we are done doing the rounding of figure and anything related to mathematics. So these are the 4 basic functions, mathematic functions, that we can implement when it comes to C++. Although if we were to discuss all the functions, it can take weeks, years, and anything related to that. So these will allow you now, give you an introduction to how you can call each and every function. Of course, functions, you can search for them either on Google, and I will drop, of course, a link to where you find all the mathematic functions actually down this video. Please check the description for the link. So we've implemented the max function. It returns the maximum value between the two. The minimum function, it will return the minimum value between the two, and of course the square root function, it returns the square root of the number passed on inside that function as a parameter, and of course the round function, which returns the nearest integer when we round off the actual decimal number that has been given. Please don't forget to subscribe, and let's proceed on our next session, and please, you are on Coordinate.